I have a question for you. Have you played in a disc golf tournament? Regardless of the answer to this question, this is an episode that is going to help you play better in your upcoming disc golf tournaments. Horacio and myself are two COVID disc golfers who got into disc golf at the perfect time, and we want to consume all that we can, and we want to get as better as quickly as we can. And sometimes getting better, you got to learn from your failures. If you want to improve your game in your upcoming tournaments, then make sure you listen to the entirety of this episode as well. In this episode, Horacio and I have a pretty good discussion on if rec divisions, i.e. rec, intermediate, advanced, should those be one division or should they all be broke out? All that and more on today's episode, which is starting right now. Welcome in everyone to the Clankers Disc Golf Podcast. We've got a different setup for you guys today. Today, we are actually live in person together. I think the only other time that we have sat down and physically done the podcast together in the same room was the very first episode. And since then, we have always been on Zoom.
Yeah, I don't even remember that. Well, that's not true because I feel like... No, we did an intro episode, and I feel like we did do that one at my house. I believe.
Yeah, we did. We did. But hey, nonetheless, here we are. We are live for this episode together. This is going to be a really fun one. We've got a bunch of different things going on behind the scenes right now. So hopefully if you're watching on YouTube, let us know if you like the setup. Let us know if you like this as well. I'd be very interested to hear your guys' opinions on that. Maybe we could do it more often if you guys do actually end up liking it. But today we are going to be talking about my most recent disc golf tournament experiences, things that I think everyone can kind of learn from because, you know, we're just two COVID disc golfers, and I think there's still some credibility there because we've been playing for, we've been playing for 2 years now. It's been 2 years, and we've been seriously playing disc golf every single day, every single weekend, ever since really the big bang started for us. And so I just got done with my first tournament of 2022, and by golly, let me tell you, it was a crazy tournament, 30-plus mile-per-hour wind. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about how you can play better in the wind. And Horacio, what have you been doing lately in disc golf? What's been working for you?
I've actually been getting out and playing again a little bit more, just with weather getting nicer and then getting my schedule back on track. Actually getting out there and playing with a buddy. But I know I was talking to you a little bit, and we'll start this off with a tip, and maybe we'll do another short video later on. But everyone always talks about being smooth when you throw, you know, smooth as far. But I recently, and I feel like we were playing around and I wasn't doing that well. And then also watching the last tournament with Gannon Burt and how he was putting, I was like, how does he putt so effortless? And everything was just going in because his putts were just insane. If you watch that last tournament, just making insane putts. And so I was just watching over and over kind of what he was doing because I've been having issues with putting. And I noticed that he brings it to his hip and he has his release point, but two, he kept his body and his arm very relaxed. And so that's what I've been doing in these last rounds that I've been going out and playing, is just keeping my arms super relaxed and super, I guess, loose when I'm putting. And it feels like the putter comes out, I'm able to putt a lot further. From spots where I normally would maybe be looking at jump putting, I can do that from there and I don't need to jump putt. But then even from areas where I was struggling from, you know, from like 10, 15 feet where I didn't have that confidence that I did before, it's so effortless. So I want you guys to go out and try this week. Try that. When you're going out putting, practice putting or whatever you're doing, keep your arms super relaxed, almost like if it's dead, and just do that motion and just see how that putter comes out and if you like it. I've been loving it. It's working for me, and, you know, I feel like that's nothing. I've never heard that from anybody, you know, from any of the pros, anyone else. No one has ever mentioned that, you know, it's always like different putting tips, motion, getting your rhythm and stuff like that. But no one has ever said, you know, just keeping that arm loose and relaxed. And so, you know, hopefully it works for you guys because I felt like it's been doing wonders for me.
I'm honestly really glad that you had said that because I was kind of sort of doing the same thing lately, that I would almost act as if I literally do not care. Because in the backyard, I would really, really try just find myself missing over and over again. And then eventually I was just like, you know what? Every time I putt that I'm just fooling around and I don't care, that's when it goes in. That's when it's the smoothest. Yeah. So I've been trying to putt as if I don't care, trying to be as not tense as possible. Just literally, I'm just flicking that thing with my wrist and almost trick shotting it to kind of go in. You know what I'm saying there? Like, yeah. It's one of those things where I'm not actively like hyper critically analyzing, thinking about it. I'm trying to kind of what Brian Schweberger said, literally not think about anything, and I'm just trying to act as if there's literally nothing on the line, no big deal, and I'm literally just flicking my wrist at the basket.
It's kind of like that. It's like not caring but still caring. Like you can still have your focus points. You being on the disc team, those points that you practice or having those rhythms you practice and being focused or something to look at, you can still have that, but in your actual like putting motion with your arm, just keeping it loose and relaxed. As I think the reason for me, or for a lot of people, maybe why for me it's working, is because when it's relaxed, you're just doing that motion and you have less jerk movement, less side to side. So when you're trying to very power it or be very intentional and keep your arm very tight, there's more room for error because you're trying to do something too hard, and then which causes you to go right or to release early or whatever, as opposed to when you're keeping the arm loose and relaxed, you're able to focus on just that release point. And because it's softer, there's not as much movement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. And it's one of those things where even when you and I were playing before this tournament, there would be positions where I'm like, oh, yep, since I went out of bounds, I have to make this putt in order to save my par. And I literally would just not get tense, just kind of throw it up there.
Yeah.
And it would go in, and it would feel like it would go in the entire time. There was never, maybe it's going to go, maybe it's not. It was literally dead center on the pole every single time, and it felt so good. So I think that's such a good tip that I think anybody listening to this podcast can take at it right now, especially if you're in that rec division. If you're newer to disc golf, you're trying to learn, you're probably almost over muscling every single thing you're doing. You're trying too hard to be good. I think it's really just kind of go back to those basics of it's literally just a wrist flick. Get the disc to the basket, almost like you're playing catch, and just get it in there. Don't try to over-muscle it in there. Because I think even with your drives, I went out to Millbrook the other day with my fiance, and I was bringing a new mid-range with me. I was bringing the Fuse with me, which is kind of understable. It's kind of like an Origin. And it was one of those things where I just kind of had to I could still have my short little run-up, 1-2 kind of pop, but I'm just so much looser, and I'm trying to not reach back as far and just have a smoother release on that, and I was able to actually get a good flight out of it. So I think you can kind of take that, I almost want to feel nothing in my arm when I'm throwing or putting, because if I feel something, if I can feel my bicep, if I can feel my elbow, whatever it is, I almost feel as though I'm tensed up too much, and that's only going to cause me to miss right, left, not get the result that I want.
Yeah, I think you want that. You want to keep that loose, keep your body loose and smooth, but then you want to have that explosion at the end. A lot of the power and a lot of that is going to come from that very last minute, and it's all about timing. So yes, like staying loose and staying, keeping your form clean, but then in that last second when you pull through, having that explosion. And once you figure it out, you'll feel it and you'll kind of know. The X step, keeping relaxed, keeping it that way it comes clean through your body. But then that last second when you're actually pulling through and snapping, that's where you put all of it, and snap. And once it clicks, you'll feel it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Couldn't agree with you more on that. But hey, I want to take a quick second, and I do want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. We've got 3 incredible sponsors right now. Huge shout outs to Disc Dot. Like Horacio said, I am personally on Team Disc Dot, as well as the show is kind of sponsored by them. I think that they are honestly the best putting tool out there. If you want to improve your putting quick and you really do want that laser focus instant, instant, like, did I make this putt? Did I hit where I want? Instant result. I think that you absolutely have to go with Disc Dot, and you can use our promo code in the description below and save yourself some money there. Upper Park, we both have gotten a shift bag from there. I also got a trainer bag, which I'm taking out to the field with me. We've got a in the bag coming up, as well as some other just reviews of those bags coming up as well. Honestly, real quick, I love the bag. I think it's a very good bag. I think if you're trying to disc down and have less options in there, the shift bag is great for you. Or if you're somebody who you're going from, a little drawstring backpack and now you're going to a bigger bag, I would much rather have a shift bag than a paratrooper, trooper, the likes of those from other companies. I really do like it, and I kind of like how it's set up where I can easily grab my putters. I can easily grab my go-to discs. I don't have to fumble around. It's got spots for every disc. You know what I'm saying? It's not just all in one little line and you have to search forever. I don't know. I really like it. Promo code Clankers10. Save yourself 10% on that. As well as OTB Discs. They are a new sponsor. You can use our promo code Chain Clankers and you can save 10%. I've got this sick orbital right here if you're watching on YouTube. There's going to be another YouTube video coming out of us reviewing this disc. I am a big fan right now. I think it's an understable disc that is going to actually stay in my bag. So far when I've thrown it, I throw it on a lot of hyzer and it pretty much goes straight and still drifts a little bit right. I think for your game, you'd really like this. Like if you like the Hades, I think the Orbital is going to be something that you'd like even more. So those are our sponsors. We've got links in the description below, promo codes down there. Again, you do support this show by supporting our sponsors. So thank you guys so much for doing that. And thank you to everyone who has been dropping those 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We see you out there. Spotify is in the lead. Again, once we hit 100, we are going to do a giveaway. So keep them coming.
Yeah, and I will say Voodoo Ranger is not a sponsor of this episode, but it could be. Belgium, if you're listening to us.
How about American-made Busch Light right here?
Imagine being the first, for just your average disc golfers, going out for fun. I feel like beer, your casual guys like the beer. So how cool would it be to be the first disc golfers or podcast to be sponsored by a brewski?
I think we could. Because I like Busch Light, because I like their content. I think Busch Light's very big in the content space. They've got their own kind of content creators. They sponsor NASCAR. I
think Voodoo Ranger would be a better fit though for the disc golf.
Would they be?
Yeah, IPAs. Disc golf people are kind of funky, kind of fun.
Okay, I'm gonna need y'all to comment down below. Are you more of a Busch Light, regular kind of beer guy, or are you an IPA guy? I gotta know. I'm more of a regular kind of guy.
Yeah. I think I've gone out to courses and I've seen like quite a bit of, pick up your litter, guys. I've seen quite a bit of cans out there and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. If you're the kind of person who drinks on the course and then you simply don't pick up your trash, you're an awful person, and you should.
I hope people don't return your discs.
Yeah, exactly. I hope they find your discs in the water
and don't give them back.
Exactly.
Even if your number's on there.
I hope they scribble out your number. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that would be really fun. That would be really fun.
But anyways, let's get into the show. Let's talk about your first tournament of the season. I did not play. I had to work, and I am not... I was a little upset I didn't get to play because that's my local course. That's the one I play every single day. And I was excited to go out there and play it, but I'm not super jealous. It was very windy, and... at some times, it did not seem like it was that fun. But you did play it, so kind of tell us the overall, and then we'll get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. It was
not 30. It was not 30 plus, you guys. It was 20, 25.
No, we were literally out there. It was 30 plus.
Okay.
Literally on UDisc, when I would record my round, it said like 33.
Okay.
It was definitely 30 plus.
All right. Okay,
and there was one guy on the card, shout out Jason, who was keeping us updated.
He was a meteorologist?
Yeah, I guess. He was keeping us updated with how much the wind speed was constantly. So, shout out to you, big fella. But, overall, yeah, super windy day, 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts. I literally got out of bed at 6:30, 7 o'clock, whatever it was, took the dogs out, did a little putting practice to warm up, and it was already swirling, it was already very windy, and it was just one of those days where I don't think you could go in with incredible expectations, because every single time we had played that course, there was virtually no wind. Maybe we had a couple of days where it hit 10 miles per hour, maybe a 15. But for the most part, it was very calm weather. And this was kind of the first time that the weather was actually pretty bad. And unfortunately, I had some things going on the day before when it was also pretty windy, so I couldn't really get a practice round going in the wind there. But, I'd played the course enough that I knew what was pretty much going to happen. The wind is just a factor. You just got to keep the disc in bounds. And I think that was one of those things where sometimes I think it was a little bit lackadaisical in maybe a drive, maybe it's an approach, and I just did a poor job of following through. We had Johnny McRae on the show a little bit ago, and he was a big advocate of you want to make sure you're following through. Even if you're throwing 50 feet, you want to follow through. And I think that was a couple of times where I just did a poor job of that. And when you're not following through in 25, 30 mile per hour winds, the wind is probably going to take your disc and do some things to it that you don't want it to do. So that was definitely a little bit of a problem. But at the end of the day, everyone's playing in 35 mile per hour winds. It's not just I'm the only one out there who's having to play in 35, 25, however much mile per hour winds. It was a windy day. Plus, when you're on the river, you're going to have even more wind coming off of that river. So that definitely made it a little bit more challenging. Overall, I think I was pretty happy with my performance. This was my 2 highest rated rounds, and I think I've played, 8-ish rated rounds maybe, just from tournaments over the last couple of years. And
so what was your round?
So the first round was a 926, and the second round was, I think, like a 890-ish or something like that. Overall, then, of course, there was a ratings update on Tuesday, so my official rating now is 907, which I cannot sign up for rec tournaments anymore.
Really?
Yeah, and the cutoff is like 900.
That's good.
So that's good. I made it, folks. I'm finally out of that division. But yes, so those were my 2 best rated rounds. And before that, I think my next highest was close to like the 850s, 860s, something like that. But I think I played in 1 or 2 tournaments last year. Yeah. So it's been a while since I've really played it. It's been dang near exactly a full year since I've played in a tournament. I think my last tournament was this last weekend, but a year ago in Manhattan. So I'm pretty happy with overall, especially the first round. I was very happy with it. And there was a couple holes where, especially on 18, we played from the short tee pad, and it was just a nice, simple forehand hyzer that I just caught the tree the wrong way, and it sent it down, because the way the hole plays out, it's 18 short at Oak for the Wichita locals. You know what I'm talking about. But for everyone else, you're pretty much, like I said, it's pretty much a basic forehand hyzer. It's what, 250-ish away or something like that maybe, and you just kind of have to hit the hill, go down the rocks, and you'll pretty much be right by the basket. The basket's pretty close to the pond, but if you go the other way, you're going down the opposite side of the hill, and you're going to be towards the river, and you pretty much have no look at it. So unfortunately, I hit the tree as it was starting to fade back in, and it caused it to hit the ground just the right way and fade down the wrong side of the hill for me. And that was the very first hole. So I took and I could have ran the putt. Honestly, if the wind wasn't so bad, I probably would have ran the putt. I think after my upshot, I was left with like a 30-footer. I was just inside the circle, so I couldn't step putt. I could have ran the putt, but I was like, it's the first hole. I'm not going to turn a bogey into a double, triple bogey. I'm not going to make the big mistake here. I'm going to lay up. I'm going to move on. And there's so much golf left, which I think is something that a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have 1,000% ran that putt, even if I couldn't have made it. I would have ran that putt, probably would have went out of bounds, would have taken an 8 or something crazy like that, and would have been pissed the rest of the tournament. So I think that right there just shows that there was growth in my game that was super duper important and kind of set the stage. Pretty much the entirety of the first round, my mentality was I'm going to let someone else make the mistake. I am going to play boring golf, and I'm going to let my competitors make the mistake. And I pretty much did that for the most part. I pretty much just kind of put the disc where I needed to do. If I had a bad upshot, thankfully I was able to make the putt for the most part. Had a couple of bad breaks and went OB, but it was going to happen eventually with the way the wind was ripping, because what was really tough was the 3 or 4 river holes that we have. The wind was pushing it off of the river, and the sidewalk plays as OB. So sidewalk and beyond is OB, and you're pretty much up against the sidewalk the whole time. So if you get something that flips even a little bit, you're pretty much OB. Throw a forehand and you expose the flight plate to the wind, you're OB. Throw it at the river and it doesn't fade, you're OB because you're in the river. So like, and I threw my Undertaker very far into the river. Like I had my quick stick completely out, and I was holding on to another dude, and we could not get it. And our boy Seth ended up getting it later on. So shout out to you, Seth, for getting that. I physically don't know how you possibly did that. But so the river holes were kind of tough, but I knew they were going to be tough for everyone. And I made a couple of big putts to save par. Notably on hole 7, my upshot was very bad. I was kind of in a tough spot anyways, and I had to really stretch out far to the right and kind of do a weird forehand flick. Almost should have just done a tomahawk right at it and hope for the best, but I didn't want to roll OB. So it was a bad upshot. I was probably left 55-ish away, and I had to go to a straddle also. It wasn't a regular step, but I had to go from the straddle. And as soon as I let the disc go, I knew that sucker was in. Ran it down, saved the par. That was big because everyone else took at least a bogey on my card, if not a double bogey. So I knew I was feeling good. And we probably, since we started on 18, it was pretty much a normal round just because, you're on 1 next. So it's not like you're starting at 12 and you're kind of having to do a little bit of that mental math. So, I knew I was in a pretty good spot. I honestly, I didn't check the scores one time during the first round. And I think that was great for my mental game that I didn't check the scores at all the first round. And we probably had about 5 holes to go. And someone on the card told me that I was in first by like 5 strokes. And then the thoughts kind of started to creep in. I was like, oh, God, how am I going to keep these thoughts out of my head? And I did a pretty good job. I ended up finishing the first round in first place by 6 strokes. So that was good. That was nice. I was very happy with that. And overall, obviously by my rating, overall I was very happy with the first round, only being +5. I was walking away from that feeling pretty good, because I think in a lot of our prior tournaments, we've walked away from a tournament round being like, wow, I hate disc golf. Why do I still play disc golf? I suck so bad. Where this was the first time I was walking away from a round, I was like, that was pretty good. Like, yeah, I made some mistakes, but I can come back from those mistakes. Like, this was a good quality round. There's room for improvement, so it's not like I shot my best ever round and it was like, this is as good as it's ever going to get. Like, I can clearly get better at some things, so the ceiling is still there. So I was feeling pretty happy after the first round.
And so, because I was watching, I was at work, but I told you, I was like, I'm going to be keeping a track on your score. And yeah, you had a super clean, first front 9. Clean, just boring golf. I was like, wow, there's nothing crazy on here, no crazy bogeys, no birdies, not really. And then the back 9 is where the bogeys started coming in. And so that course, the front 9 is pretty safe, and the back 9, you're pretty much playing along water almost the entire part and some ponds, so there's a lot more danger. And so is that what happened, or why did more of those bogeys, come in on that back 9? Yeah,
it was pretty much just the fact that a couple bad OB hits. There was one mainly that I was set up, I think it was 11, and we were going from red, so it was the longer one down by the river. And I had not a great drive, whatever. It was a nice little simple pitch up for a nice tap-in par. And it was, like I said in the beginning of the monologue, it was a lackadaisical approach with my zone.
Lackadaisical.
Yeah.
Spell that.
LAX a days ago. It was not good, but it was one of those where it was not good, but the way that it was not good was it wasn't like I threw it long or I turned it over. I pretty much did one of those classic, like, I just threw it straight spike hyzer into the air with no sort of force, so it wasn't actually really going towards the basket a whole lot, or it just had the right angle to where the wind caught the flight plate and just shot it out of bounds. And all of a sudden I was looking at a tap-in par, and now I actually have to fight for a bogey. in the tough wind with a downward slope that if I miss, it's easily a double, if not a triple. And so I kind of did a little baby run at it, and I just hit it the wrong way and ended up like 20 feet away. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I had a tap in par, and I'm going to take a 6 on this hole.
Yeah.
I was able to save the double. Oh, well. And then just kind of the same thing on the other ones. Just didn't get off the tee super great because that was when the wind was at its absolute hardest because it's coming straight off of the river. And it was just moving it in a direction where I wanted to throw a hyzer against it, but it would turn everything over. And I knew if I disked up, like if I threw a DD3 and it doesn't turn it over, it's 40 feet into the river.
Yeah.
Because it'll hit the side of the hill and it's going out of bounds. There's no way I can get it to stall fast enough. So it was a tough one where it's like, well, do I go with a forehand and fight the wind and risk showing it the flight plate and all of a sudden it's OB across the sidewalk? Do I throw a hyzer and risk it going OB? So it's just really, really tough to kind of make a decision. There was another hole where we watched the lead MPO card go and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. It was 14 long. Yeah, 14 long. So you're still down by the river. And they were all just kind of throwing it into the hill and then a nice, easy approach. Well, I did the same thing, only instead of skipping forward, mine went up probably like a foot into the air, which was enough for the wind to pick it up and throw it OB. So if it had no speed and the wind was able to catch it, you're going OB. So that's kind of where my river holes went bad. That's really where I got all of my strokes, was the river holes, because it unlucky hit, it would go OB, and yeah.
Okay, and so let's, looking back at it, we won't get too much into the tournament, that specific round, don't want to all the details, but looking back at it, you've had some time to think on it. What are some things that you would have done differently that you think maybe would have given you, because you ended up coming in second, so what are some things that you could have done and put you in that first place?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a little bit of drama behind the second place finish. So, and absolutely no disrespect to nobody, no hard feelings towards nobody. At the end of the day, I should still have won. But with all that said, after the first round, I was in first place clear by 6 strokes. So I was going to lunch feeling very good about myself. I said, I really have to mess up this next round to not win this thing. I get back from lunch and I get on the tee and I find out I'm in second. And I was like, how is that physically possible? It said F for everyone. Everyone was done. I'm confused. And so we did some more investigating, and they took the kid who was in the under 18 division, and because he was by himself, they put him in the rec division with us.
Damn, so you got to be by a kid.
He was like 17. He was not a kid. I was surprised he was not over 18.
Yeah.
But, and so he was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
He won.
He did win. Yes. He got very lucky on a couple holes.
Yeah.
But he did win. Yeah. Absolutely. He won. He played better than I did. And, Gannon Burr's younger than me and almost won LVC. Yeah. So I don't feel bad.
That's not cool, though. Someone being in a division already and then, because they're alone, moving them up. But also, he probably should have just signed up for rec.
Yeah, absolutely. He should have signed up for rec, or he should have signed up for intermediate.
Kind of sandbag, I guess, under 18.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speculate. I don't know. It was his decision to sign up for the under 18. So at the end of the day, I'm a little confused why he wasn't in that division at the end of the tournament.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Cool.
I literally don't care. Like I said, no disrespect, no hate, nothing. I don't care. I should have played my game and won. So at the end of the day, I take full responsibility and full pain for that.
But they shouldn't do that.
Agreed. Yes. I don't understand how after the end of the first round
you move someone
to another division.
Yeah.
But whatever. I was like, you know what? I go from a position where I'm up 6 strokes, I'm going to play very relaxed, does not matter, to now I'm in a dogfight all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Now he's got 1 stroke on me. And I was like, okay, it's go time. I was like, you know what? I wanted to fight and I got to fight. So here we go. Let's go after it. And we started on the river holes to start. Or we started on 12. So we had 12, 13, 14 along the river and then finished on 11. So that was pretty tough. And at this point, after lunch, the wind was easily 10 miles more than what it was at the end of the first round. And so it was pretty tough. And first one, he went out of bounds, and I barely stayed in bounds. I was like, okay, feeling pretty good. And he had just the best up shot I've ever seen on that hole. Cut through literally everything and was able to save his bogey. And I think we ended up getting the same score because I hit the cage from like 35 or something like that. Okay, there's a missed opportunity. The next hole, we both end up, I think I got a 6 and he got a 7, because this probably was my most frustrating moment, because he went out of bounds very early, and I said, sick, awesome. Like you, all I have to do is keep it in bounds.
Yeah.
And what did I do? Not
bounds.
keep it in bounds.
Yeah.
And so I threw out of bounds also. So now I'm throwing my zone backhand approach pretty much the entire way over the OB to get to the basket. It hits the sidewalk, and as it's like skipping toward the inbounds, the wind catches it and blows it directly up, and it hits a little teeny tiny branch off of a tree and comes straight down. I was fuming on the inside because I was like, dude, I was literally going to get multiple strokes on this guy here. And so
it was toe to toe. I was watching it, and that one stroke that he started with, I think that's pretty much what he ended up winning by.
He ended up winning by like 3 or 4, I think.
There was one hole, I think 10, which is a really long one. And I was watching, and then he said he birdied. I was like, holy crap. Like, what did this kid do to birdie this hole? That's a tough hole to birdie.
Yeah, I'll explain that one. So, pretty much, the rest of the round, we were pretty much toe-to-toe. And this is also why I say, no disrespect to nobody. I should have won. I should have taken care of business no matter who I'm playing against, right? And it's because I had a 2-stroke lead at one point.
Yeah.
At one point, I literally had 2 strokes on the guy, so I should have been able to finish it and put more pressure on him. But the big problem that was happening to me was I literally could not stop thinking about the score.
Yeah.
No matter what I tried, I could not stop thinking about what I did and then what he did and the score, and just I was like super hyper, like ADHD, just locked onto it.
You're a competitive guy.
Yeah.
So that's what you're in a tournament. That's what you're doing it. So that's what you're thinking about.
Yes, exactly. I literally could not clear my mind. I was trying so hard to not think about it because I knew it was hurting my game. And overall, it hurt me a lot. But it was one of those things also where lately I've been trying to get on the tee pad, take a couple of breaths, let everything go, and throw. I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, because the second the wind broke, you throw, or you're going to get called on time, or you're going to have to throw in bad wind, or whatever it is. So, like, there was no time to think about it. There was no time to get ready. It was, oh, crap, the wind is good. I better go throw right now.
Yeah.
So that was a little frustrating, and I think just playing in the wind more and more is obviously going to help with that. But it's one of those things where, it got to a point where on 6 long, again, I had a good drive, wind caught it, put me 3 feet into the woods, and I just had no line, bad upshot, had to take a bogey. So we're going into 7 with 4 to play, I think, and it was at like 3 strokes. And I was like, okay, obviously not where I want to be. I'm down 3 to this guy, but I can still put some pressure on him. After that hole, it's 2 strokes. I'm like, okay, feeling pretty good about myself. I'm liking this. Stays at 2. We've got 2 to play. And this dude, I throw a pretty safe shot on 10 because the way the wind was pushing it is pushing it towards the OB road. So it's like, I'm going to stay in bounds, put the pressure on him. It is what it is, whatever. It's a par 4, okay? This guy lets his disc go, and it is immediately heading out of bounds. There is a 0% chance this disc lands in bounds. Goes out of bounds by a country mile, and then somehow, some way, the road and wind picked it up just the perfect way for him and put it another 100 feet down the fairway and kicked it back in bounds. And so now he literally had an eagle look. I mean, he probably had a 40-footer for eagle.
Oh, wow.
And that's like a 500-foot hole or something like that. Like the wind literally took that disc so far. And I was sitting there and I was like, wow, I was getting a stroke here and now I'm losing a stroke.
Yeah.
And so I lost a stroke there. And on 11, I was like, damn, this really sucks. It should be at 1 right now, and I should be making him scared to throw it in bounds. And instead, he's got 3 strokes to play with, so it doesn't even matter. So I threw the tilt there, and I was like, whatever, I'll stay in bounds. Took the par, and he did as well. And I was hoping he was going to go out of bounds and then miss his putt and roll down the hill. And I needed a lot to happen. But at the end of the day, like I've been saying, no disrespect, no hate, no nothing. I should have taken care of business, and I could not because my mental game was too focused on the score and not what I was doing. Kind of like how Greg was talking about. You know, I was too worried thinking about what I had done and what I need to do instead of what I am doing right now. And if I would have focused more on what I need to do right now, there would have been more success there. If I could have had the same mindset that I had in the first round, not caring about the score, I'm just playing, it'll all sort itself out, I guarantee you my score would have been significantly better. Right. And so some takeaways that I have, and I think some takeaways that everyone can go to the field and work on is, one, the approach game. And, you know, lately, I'll be honest, I haven't really worked on the approach game because I'm pretty much within putting distance most of the time, or it's a nice little layup. But this reminded me that having a good solid approach is very important, especially in the wind. Have to work on approaching in the wind.
And maybe play longs more.
We played longs a couple times.
A couple times, but you weren't used to it as much. You know how you're saying you're usually in putting range.
Yeah. Yeah. I
know it's easy. A lot of times it's more fun to just play shorts.
Yes. Mixed up with the longs, which we did. The last 2 practice rounds we did do longs. So should I have done maybe 1 or 2 more from longs? Sure.
Not just prepping for the tournament, but, you know, just in general going out to play.
Yes. Yeah. Completely agree. In general, play more from the longs, less from the shorts. And so, approaches, do that more. I think just continuing to work on that mental space, continuing to put myself in pressure situations, continuing to find a way to get myself in those moments and get better from them. And I think at the end of the day, the second place finish is going to help me get better in the long run because I've put myself in a position where I'm actually fighting for something. I'm fighting for a W, and I had a failure, and I'm able to learn from that failure and get better.
And so, you know, question, you know, he was in under 18. He got moved up, one, because he was by himself, and then probably because he was good enough, and then moved up to the next division and still won, beat you by a few strokes, and then you beat the next person by a few strokes also. You two were separated by
6.
By 6. So do you think that you two should have been an intermediate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%. We should not have been in the rec division. And I'll be the first one. You can yell at me in the comments. You can, if you're in Wichita, you can yell at me on purpose.
Because if I would have played, I probably would have also done rec division. Mm-hmm. My reasoning is, 1, I've only been playing, for 2 years. 2, I haven't been playing that much this offseason. I was not comfortable with my game at all. And it was just kind of a first tournament of the season, kind of for fun, kind of just to see where I'm at kind of thing. So that would have been my reasoning. But what about you? What made you decide?
I mean, I think it's a lot of the same thing. It was the first time playing a tournament in a year because I didn't do any after March last year, as well as this was the first time that I was actually getting a rating for a tournament. Yeah. And every single time that I had gotten a rating prior, it said I should have played in the rec division. So my mind was like, okay, well, this first one I'll play in rec and I'll see what happens. I'll see, have I truly grown from the last times that I've played in tournaments, or am I still where I was a year, 2 years ago? And what I learned was, absolutely, yes, I've grown, which, hey, subscribe right now. If you want to continue to grow and next year look at yourself in a different light, if you want to improve your game, all those scores, subscribe absolutely right now and listen to the episodes, take notes down, do those kinds of things because that will help you. Go out to the field, work on what you're bad at, all those kinds of things. But yeah, so those were kind of my reasonings. I was like, you know what? First tournament of the year, haven't played a competitive disc golf like that in quite a while. I don't have a rating. Every rating I've gotten to prior to this says I should be in this division. I'll play in this division for this tournament because I had chosen to not sign. There was other tournaments I wanted to sign up for, but I hadn't signed up yet because I wanted to see what happened at this one before I made a decision on which division I was going to play in moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing, I think that we can get better at just overall is rec divisions. That's yes for people that haven't, that haven't improved as much. So that's kind of just where they're at. But it's also for a lot of new players. I've never played. I picked this up a few months ago, a year ago. I don't practice that much. I don't play that much. Or I used to play. I'm coming back to it. I don't play that much at all very more, but I just want to do a tournament. I'm excited. I want to compete. I want to do a tournament. But they don't play very much, or they're brand new. And I feel like that rec division, is for those players. And, because I've seen some people, they're very excited. They come into the sport and they go into a tournament and, they play at the level, that they are. And, they get a rec score. They come in, plus 15, plus 20 or whatever. And, they're in, I guess, let's say, fourth or fifth place, in rec division. And then the person in first place is +1, +2, or, they're even under par. And I feel like that's very upsetting, to those new players because it's like, what the heck, what's even the point of playing in tournaments or doing these competitions if I absolutely have no chance to compete? I guess not even necessarily win, but just to compete. And so I feel like if you've been playing for a while, if you play regularly, if you can throw 300 plus, if you can putt decent, you should not be playing in rec. Leave that division for new players, leave that division for people who are working on their game, for those that are just finding it, just learning. Move up to intermediate. Don't be afraid to, come in fifth or sixth place in intermediate as opposed to maybe winning in rec division. Everybody wants to win, but also, that you're kind of just putting yourself down another level. If you know that you can compete, if you're coming in fifth or sixth, there's very few things you have to adjust with your game to put you in competition to win. So do that instead. So I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this rant is, if you think you're maybe good enough for intermediate, play intermediate. Or if you think you're maybe good enough for advanced, go to advanced. Because you see this in every single division. You see players in advanced who, it's the same. The scores, you go back at tournaments, look at every division, and there's a spread, and you're like, wow, you could take this division, put it over to the other one, and they look identical, which that shouldn't be the case. You look at intermediate and advanced, and a lot of the time they look pretty similar, or advanced and MPO, they look pretty similar.
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head, and that's something that I definitely learned this weekend. And like I said, I just wanted to take that tournament to really solidify and prove to myself that I do belong in that division, which I think I did. And just here's the scores from that division. It was +13, my +17. The next score was +25, +32, 33, 36, 37, 44, 47, 48, and 62. So, I doubled up. I could have doubled up what I did and still beaten over half the field.
And so your score, what would that have put you in intermediate?
That would have put me tied for sixth.
Yeah. See, so that's a very competitive spot to be in. You go from almost winning in rec, but who are you, who are you beating? You're beating people who aren't actually in that same level playing field, and it's not fair to them because they can't go down to a lower division. People in other divisions, you can go down lower. You can go up to another division to make it more competitive. But people in rec, that's kind of the only rec. Some tournaments, they have a novice.
Every tournament should have a novice division.
But then I think the same thing would happen. There's always going to be people that...
Yes,
the people that at the bottom of this tournament, who are 46, blah, 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 they're going to go down to that novice, and there'll always be kind of that... So
yeah, but I think there's also just a negative connotation around novice and rec in the first place, which I think we need to get that out of the way now, because if there are novices, and you could see those +40, 40, 33, whatever it is, or those people, hey, this is my first ever tournament. I'm going to play a novice. I'm going to figure out, all those things. They can actually go somewhere and not feel bad about themselves. Because honestly, like, do I regret playing in rec? No, because I learned a lot about my mental game that I wouldn't have learned if I was just fighting for fifth or whatever. So I learned a lot about my mental game, but would I do it again? No, I don't think I would rob those people of that opportunity. And and I'm not trying to sit here on my high horse and act like I'm better than anybody, because I'm absolutely not. But it's one of those things where I had a couple of drives where they were dumbfounded. They were like, how did you do that?
Yeah. And
it was kind of in that moment where I was like, dang, I probably made a mistake. I really said, dang, dude. Like on four short, I finally hit the gap and didn't hit those trees, and I was literally 2 feet away.
Yeah.
So like, and nobody was within 100 feet. And I was like, it was at that moment where I was like, yeah, I probably should have played in a different division. But it is what it is. Like I said, for those reasons in the past, that's why I decided to do that. But I think that change the cognition around rec and around the novice division actually offer those. And I really do think you'll see more people playing. Yeah. And I think you'll see more people in the division that they should be in. And it's one of those things, even in advance, I would have gotten like 15th or 16th or something like that. So, and you're right. It's one of those things where dang near any tournament, the bottom people in intermediate are sometimes doing worse than like the bottom people in rec.
Yeah.
And like, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of times where you could see the intermediate winner score like 5th in MPO if they would have played that division. There's not a whole lot of clarity all the time. So I do think that, myself included, everyone can be a little bit better at choosing their divisions. But also, if you've got buddies who play in intermediate and you're a rec player and you want to play with your buddy, I don't care.
Yeah. Sometimes I also feel like, you have MPO, and then, once you go MPO, there's just everyone is that division. Sometimes I feel like it would be good if there was just an AM division. There's no advanced, no intermediate, no rec. You're just AM. And, so if you scored...
That's what League Night's for.
Yeah, that's how League Night is. And if you're rec, you're going to be towards the bottom. Let's say it's 40 players, that the rec players, and that I feel like you'll truly know what division you are after playing multiple tournaments, and you'll be able to break that bracket up very easily into 3 parts. If you have one division of, like, let's say 60 people.
But hold on, I think it just goes to the point that you were saying earlier of, well, people are going to feel bad if you're in rec and absolutely dominating against them when you should be in a different division. What's stopping that from happening when it's just a whole AM division? Instead of getting creamed by 1 or 2 dudes, you're getting creamed by 30, 40 dudes.
Get better, or don't play in tournaments.
So then you can just apply to the same thing we have now.
Yeah, but I feel like it's more annoying when there's like 3 divisions, when it's specifically created for that. When you do one, you can't have that complaint because there's just one division.
Yeah, I can see
But when
that.
there's 3 and, everyone is getting beat by that first player by like 15 strokes because they want to win, or because they're just used to, they're like, oh, I don't feel comfortable moving up to a division. So they're just playing in that division they've always played in, and they're constantly beating those people. Then I feel like then it's kind of annoying, for those lower players. And, we're only saying this because we were in the situation last year whenever we played tournaments. We were playing in rec. We were those new players.
Yeah.
We were those who were not good. We were just coming into it. We had no putting game. We barely could drive. We were figuring stuff out. But we wanted to do tournaments. We wanted to compete. Our scores, were not the best. But, there was some rounds or some tournaments, we were in rec. And we didn't have OB, we didn't have horrible drives. We were still playing okay disc golf. And, we were finishing, let's say 10 or 12th in that rec division. And then first place was like -6.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, okay, I understand that I'm new and I'm not that great, but the person in the same division.
That's the ceiling?
Yeah.
God damn, I ain't never touching that.
Right. And so that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, that's not totally fair. And I think if you did a single AM division, it would be very easily, these are the rec, these are your intermediate, this is your advanced. And when you're constantly at the top or, above that middle part, I guess, you would be able to know you move up, but.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I don't think that's a bad idea at all for some tournaments, but I also think you can accomplish the same thing at league night.
But yeah, that's how league night is.
Yeah,
you just have one division.
Yeah, so I think that's almost okay, you accomplish that at league night, and then now if I finish in the bottom third of league night every week, I should play in rec.
Yeah.
Or if I finish in the middle, I should play in intermediate, something like that. So, yeah, I think overall, like some win tips that I know at the beginning of the episode, I said, yeah, I'll give some tips for playing in the wind. Here's a couple of tips that I got for playing in the wind, right? When you're putting, practice when the weather is bad, all right? If it's windy outside and you're like, I'm not playing disc golf today. No, my friend. That's the day you want to go play because you want to get better in the wind. Like I cannot tell you how many times I had a 10-footer and I was terrified.
Just don't do tournaments in the wind, you guys. Easy.
It didn't look windy when I signed up, okay? But, yeah, so I think putting in the wind is a big one, just continuing to learn your discs. I also think that if you can incorporate, if you're a push putter or splush putter or whatever, if you can incorporate...
Splush putter?
Yeah, bro, that's what it's in between like a spin and a push, splush.
Splush.
Maybe I'm not saying it right, but...
Where's the L coming from?
Splash? Spush. Then I don't know, whatever. But if you do a little mix of both, figure out a little bit more of a spin putt, so that way you're fighting the wind better and you can keep the disc flatter. That's something that I've been working on a lot lately, and sometimes I'm even more accurate than when I try to go more with the push style. As well as I think disking to more overstable and just like knowing when to throw your overstable versus understable, like understanding that a headwind's going to turn them over, so you need to be going more with the overstable discs. So a lot of what I was throwing was my overstable DD3, my cloud breaker, or I would be throwing my Onyx, or I would be throwing, I wouldn't be throwing my Enigma near as much because I need something that is overstable. I need it to fight against the wind. But I picked up a Justice, right? So I picked up a pretty cool Justice, and I needed it for more overstability for my zone, because sometimes I'll kind of turn my zone over just enough to where in a normal day, it's fine. I can still make that 15, 20 footer, but when the wind is that heavy, or maybe there's just a little bit more pressure, I need that Justice to just know it's overstable, it's going to finish to the left, there is 0% chance this is going right, just throw it out wide and let it come in. It doesn't matter what the wind's going to do to it, it's going to be fine. So that was kind of a decision for me that I was like, I need something that's not a tilt, because tilt will roll. If you throw the tilt, pretty much every single time the tilt rolls, and so if it's standing up and the wind catches it, who knows what's going to happen to it. So that's why I was like, I need a Justice because I need it to hit the ground and just stop. And so I got one of those. And so another tip that I have also for just kind of playing in the wind is just trying to clear your head at the end of the day. And just because I went home and I putted for like an hour and a half after the tournament because I was so mad about my putting performance. And I really didn't even putt that bad. I was just more mad at the fact that I was scared to putt half the time because of the wind. And just, I really think that overall, understanding your discs, how they fly in different conditions, putting the work in, I really do think just makes all the difference. If you can play disc golf not scared, you'll play a lot better.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, I totally agree. I think it just comes confidence and practice, but, we'll definitely have to do a end of the season, whatever tournament you did, to kind of see what differences you made and, how you competed in intermediate or the whatever division, or if, maybe he just goes back to rec, tries to get another W for the season.
If I fall under 900, I'm signing up. I'm getting that W.
I'm just never going to get a PDJ number. That way I don't get a rating, and I can just always play in rec.
No one can ever call you a bagger that way. Yeah, that's funny.
Until I feel like I'm ready, and then I'll just come out 1,000 rated.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. You get when you finally get a PDGA, you're like 45 or
I've
something like that.
only been playing for a month, guys. Yeah, I just picked up this last week.
Aren't you the guy from the podcast? Hey, also, before we close this out, shout out to everyone who at the tournament came up to me and said that they love the show and they listen to the show and support what we're doing. Like, huge shout out to you guys. Like, I know I was wearing my Chain Clankers gear, but like, truly thank you. And thank you to, everyone who taps into our podcast. We're just like you, and we're all trying to find a way to get better because things are more fun when you're better at them. And so thank you for everyone who came up, had a conversation with me. You guys are you're so cool, and couldn't be more thankful for it.
Cool. We did it.
That's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. It was fun. I had a blast. I'm glad I was able to get that off my chest and let you guys know, and hopefully you cannot make the same mistakes, because at the end of the day, like we've always said, we want to make the mistake so you don't have to make the mistake. If you enjoyed this episode and want to listen to more, check out our interview with Robert McCall. If you're wondering, what does this plastic type do in the first place? How do I improve my approach game? You're going to want to listen to our episode with Robert McCall. He breaks a lot of that down, and it's a really good episode. We've got some awesome interviews lined up coming up, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and like the video on YouTube. And remember, comment down below, hit us up on Instagram, whatever it is. Let us know, do you like the live setting with us together? Do you like when we're on a meeting like Zoom? Let us know. We'd be interested in hearing the results from that. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.